Hello and welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing very well. Now today we have a very exciting topic, and that is a big question mark that has been looming over the Formula One community over the past few days, weeks, months even, and that is around our empty seats on the 2025 Formula One grid. Let's discuss who the potential names are that are being thrown around, that are being rumoured for these empty seats, and potential scenarios and possibilities that could play out if we are to have a bit of a driver switcheroo. But obviously before we dive in, this is all based on potentials and things that I've inferred from rumours, things I've seen in the paddock, meetings that people have been having, headlines from journalists. So obviously none of this is confirmed, but I thought it would be a fun idea to just chat through with you guys today and get all of your thoughts on what you think should happen, but what we think will happen. Let's quickly go through the 2025 grid that has already been confirmed and locked in, and then we will talk about the empty seats. Now, first up, we have Red Bull Racing, and under contract, we do have Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez with a continued partnership into next year, although I think it is very likely that Sergio Perez will be replaced given his performance over the past season or two. So I think that one is definitely TBC, although contractually it is still the same two drivers as this year. Next up is the brand new partnership at Ferrari, which is Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton. I think this news is definitely one that shocked and left a lot of conversation and discussion. It is probably one of the biggest driver moves in the past couple of decades, and I think everyone is curious, excited, or questioning Lewis's move and how he's going to perform in red. But I think it's definitely one that is going to create some excitement next season, especially dependent on the performance of the Ferrari and how competitive their car is. Next up, we have another new partnership at Mercedes, which is Kimi Antonelli and George Russell. Obviously, Kimi Antonelli has very big shoes to fill, or gloves, should I say. I think given that he's only partway through his first season in Formula 2, it is quite difficult to gauge how competitive he is going to be. Unfortunately, he did crash at his first ever Formula 1 practice session in Monza earlier this year, so I am interested to see his upcoming free practice sessions to see whether he can get some good lap times in, how far he can push the car, but from what we've already seen of him, he is an extremely competitive young driver. And at McLaren, we have consistency. We have Oscar Piastri and Lando Norris both staying at the team. I think it has been incredible to see their journey from the start of the 2023 season to now close to the end of the 2024 season, leading the Constructors' Championship. I think they've definitely made waves this year and definitely been a surprise contender for both titles at one point, if we're going to say that. But I'm very interested to see the last year of our current regulations and how that plays out next year. Obviously, we haven't finished this season yet, so we don't know how it is ultimately going to pan out, but I do think that they will maintain their consistency and hopefully get their strategy in place a little tighter, a little better, and maybe fighting for more titles again next year. And again, the same partnership at Aston Martin in Fernando Alonso and Lance Stroll. Now, one of my predictions at the start of maybe this year or last year was that Fernando Alonso would retire again. And I will say it, I am surprised to see Lance Stroll still on the Formula One grid, but with the addition of Adrian Newey, I think Aston Martin could be onto really big things. And we saw how competitive they were at the start of the 2023 season, so who's to say they can't be back consistently scoring podiums. Now, breaking their double Frenchman driver partnership, we have Alpine. Esteban Ocon is departing and making room for rookie Jack Doohan, and Pierre Gasly will stay at the team. So I am interested to see that partnership. I've heard very good things about Jack Doohan. I think he's definitely a familiar face in the paddock, having been the reserve driver for the past couple of seasons, so very intrigued to see how he does in their car. Now, the next partnership is another new one. Obviously, Lewis's move to Ferrari meant that one of the drivers had to depart, and that driver was and is Carlos Sainz, who is moving to Williams alongside Alex Albon. Now, this partnership definitely caused a stir, with a lot of people questioning Carlos's move, saying that it was a step down, but I think had Franco Colapinto not stepped in and done such a fantastic job, people wouldn't necessarily be questioning this, but I think there is definitely some question marks around this that will be interesting to dive into later in the video. Then our final confirmed driver lineup for 2025 is Haas, and this is an all-new driver lineup for Haas. It is rookie, if we're still calling him a rookie, Ollie Behrman, because technically I did read that you have to have done 5 full race weekends to be classed as not a rookie. So technically, still a rookie, still his first permanent season and drive in Formula One. We have Ollie Behrman, and alongside him will be Esteban Ocon. So, they're a similar height, similar builds. Maybe that'll help Haas with their ride height. But, all of these things are definitely things that come into play with the setup of the car. And I am definitely interested. I think Ollie Behrman will be able to learn a lot from Esteban Ocon. Some good, some bad things, but yeah, very interested to see that driver pairing. So VCARB is the first of our two teams that still have an empty seat. We currently have Yuki Tsunoda locked in for the 2025 season, but the second seat remains to be determined. Liam Lawson, I do think, is a very reliable, steady option, given that he scored points on his first race back in Formula One since his small stint in 2023. I think he's very competitive. He has shown that he is not afraid to get his elbows out, which we have seen in the past few races, especially against Sergio Perez, which I believe is quite symbolic given the rumours and the talk that he could potentially be a contender to replace Sergio Perez for next year. Should Liam Lawson replace Sergio Perez at Red Bull, I think there's a few names that are being thrown around for this potential second seat. The first one is Franco Colapinto, who we know has stepped in for Logan Sargent in that Williams seat alongside Alex Albon this season, but obviously we have Carlos Sainz currently sat in that Williams seat for next year. We know that Colapinto has been pretty consistent the past few races and has a huge fan base, which of course comes with a lot of sponsors and money, which is one of the biggest drivers in Formula One, pardon the pun. So potentially Franco Colapinto, potentially Isaac Hadjar. Another question mark is whether Carlos Sainz is poached from Williams to join Red Bull in place of Sergio Perez. Lawson stays at RB and Colapinto takes that seat at Williams from Carlos Sainz. Now, that is being rumoured, okay? And I have seen many a gossip, many a conversation happen in the paddock from pictures and posts online. So that is a possibility, although we do know that there has been a little bit of friction between the Verstappen and Sainz families, particularly between Carlos Sainz Sr. and Jos Verstappen. And we know that, but Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz have been teammates before. They were together at Toro Rosso very early in their careers, and I do think it is an extremely strong partnership. So whether they can put their family differences aside is another question, but I have heard that Jos Verstappen has been pushing to have Liam Lawson in that second seat. So perhaps that is a more likely scenario, a more likely alternative. So I mentioned Isaac Hadjar, who you might not be overly familiar with. He is a part of the Red Bull Driver Academy. He's currently racing in Formula 2 with Campos Racing, has had a very good track record across Formula 3 and Formula 2, and is a very good prospect for that RB seat. I think he has brilliant potential and is definitely a strong contender for that seat, but whether that happens for 2025 or beyond is definitely a question mark. Now, the second and final seat open for 2025 is at Saba, or Kick Sauber, Stake F1 team Kick Sauber, if you will. So we know that Nico Hülkenberg has already signed with them for next year and beyond. I think that's not the biggest surprise given that he is a German driver, and obviously Audi will be taking over from 2026 and beyond. So, kind of makes sense, has that synergy. But there are a few question marks around who will take the seat for next year, given that we still have another year of it being Sauber rather than Audi. So there's a few different options that the team can have. They're probably not going to want to spend loads of money on a driver, and I imagine that Valtteri Bottas' salary is probably higher than an up-and-coming driver. And whilst it isn't as competitive as the VCARB RB seat, given the performance of the car, I think that it's definitely still sought after and obviously great for drivers, particularly who are early on in their career, to get their foot in the door. This is perhaps one of the bigger names, or more likely names, that is in contention for the seat, and that is Gabriele Bortoleto. Now, he is a Formula 3 champion. He won the series with Trident, and he is currently racing in Formula 2. He's a Brazilian driver, and I think that is definitely a huge appeal for the team. It would come with a lot of support, not only from Brazil, but from sponsors and in a monetary sense, I imagine. We've seen the effect of Franco Colapinto and the Argentine fans and sponsors that have come along with that. I imagine maybe not to the same extent, but, a similar effect and impact and influx of support that he might get from the Brazilians and from people in South America could be huge. I think the fact that it's early in his career is definitely a huge factor for Sauber. You know, this project that they have coming up with Audi, the long-term investment that they could make. You know, if they manage to turn around a really competitive car come 2026 and have a huge project that they're working on, he could be integral to that, and they could really help shape him as a driver and really kickstart his career. But also, he could really kickstart Audi's start in Formula One. So that is my take. Those are my options. There's definitely a lot to consider, a lot of moving parts. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I would love to know who you would like to see in those seats and who you think will fill those seats, because I imagine those two are slightly different things. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. It's a little bit more chatty than the usual style that I do across TikTok and Instagram, but I hope you enjoyed, and let me know in the comments what you would like to see next. I will see you all in my next video.